Hoping to win back a larger share of the market. CNN technology correspondent Rick Lockridge reports.
In the cutthroat video game industry, one word seems to be all-powerful.
The graphics. Graphics. The graphics. Better graphics means it's more realistic.
And embattled Sega's new Dreamcast video game console is graphically better. The first home unit able to handle 128 computer bits of data at once. Twice as much as the Sony PlayStation and Nintendo 64 machines that dominate the $12 billion a year U.S. video game market.
60 frames a second, which is twice the speed of a TV. It equals graphics you've never seen before. When you watch a football game, it looks like you're watching a real game on TV.
Video game images are made up of tiny polygons. Dreamcast can draw 3 million of those polygons a second, up to 15 times more than competing systems.
Does that make that much of a difference to a player?
Yes, it does. It's more exciting.
It's really smooth. I didn't see any errors.
Sega's errors as a company, though, have been well documented. Its last home console flopped, and it's seen its market share plummet from more than 50% to about 1%. Can Dreamcast end Sega's nightmare?
They have a lot banking on the Dreamcast. Again, they're a leap. It's sort of a leap in video game technology, and Sega is going to use this to make a comeback into the marketplace.
Sega, a name that resonates with many gamers who love this very company for a lot of reasons. And there's news of Sega coming back into the console market. Now this news isn't really new to me. Even though the idea of a journalist talking about how Sega is gonna rock the the console industry, the video game industry, it's gonna rattle a few cages. This excites me, but at the same time, I'm taking it with a grain of salt because I don't want to be disappointed. Sega is a company that brought us the Genesis, of course the Sega CD, as most people, it's a half and half deal. You got the 32X that really is a console that really, rubbed a lot of Sega fans the wrong way. You got the Saturn that was, I think, an underrated console that really has a lot of good games and just is a really good console overall, but had a rough upcoming in the marketing area. And then you have the Dreamcast that really did well, and then this kind of fell off the earth due to the PS2. And of course, let's don't forget to mention the obscured consoles that most people never bring up, like the Sega Master System that was before the Sega Genesis. You got the Sega Game Gear, something that my girlfriend really likes. She's a big fan of the Sega Game Gear. She loves the game Tails Adventure and all those other obscure games that were on the Sega Game Gear. And of course, you got the Sega No-Man. That's sort of like a portable Sega Genesis that is pretty much the equivalent to the Nintendo Switch. A lot of people think it's hardware. There's got to be hardware. And if this is true, this would be completely game-changing. I mean, I'm a huge Sega fan. I love Sega. Sega brought some of the best childhood memories of me growing up. The Dreamcast is my prized possession. It's one of my favorite consoles, along with the Genesis. There's a lot of potential that Sega can tap into. And I think when people speak of Sega, when they think of Sega, they think of Sonic. And that's just the younger generation. And I think, it comes down to the fact that younger generations don't know about games like Shinobi, Comic Zone that I really think has potential to become something new, Fantasy Star, Panzer Dragoon, and you got, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a staple name for Sega. You got Streets of Rage. And you got, of course, a game I've been waiting for a while. I'm hoping that Sega comes back with it, called Vector Man. And, you got games like, Shining Force. And, of course, if you're going to count, Crazy Taxi, Virtual Fighter. You got games like Daytona USA, it's a driving game. And, of course, you got, games like Jet Grind Radio and things like that. House of the Dead. Sega has a lot of IPs to tap into, and that's not even all their library of games. Sega has a lot more than that. But can you imagine a brand new set of games released to a new generation of gamers? I really think it would be beneficial to not just Sega fans, but to Sega and also new fans. Get them familiar with Sega's history and the technology and why Sega is such a big deal. I really think this would really be a good thing for the industry to see another option, especially with these during these hard times in gaming, man. Gaming is sort of in this area where there's a lot of disappointment when it comes to fans. You got the DLC problem, you got loot boxes, you got you got games that don't work properly. You got a lot of unhappy fans who just want to play a game, and I really think Sega would be another good option, a kind of a fresh air into the gaming industry, something new, something old, something familiar. And that's really my thoughts on this idea. If there is a Sega console, I don't think it's going to be the Dream. Now, what's interesting about this journalist is that he mentions that it's going to be on par with the PS5. Now, that's pretty ballsy. You got to think about it. Just saying it's going to be on par with the PS5. I don't know. Well, keep in mind, the journalist never mentioned a Sega console, but he said that this new thing that Sega's working on is going to be on par with PS5. That's pretty big if you think about it. Most people think it's, I don't think it's a game. I really don't think it's a game because, it doesn't sound like, it would be something for a game. It sounds like, tech topics, So the one thing, if this is true, if Sega does come back to the console market, there are going to have to be a few changes. These changes will have to happen. Sega would have to, take all their existing IPs and make them into just Sega console exclusives, like Sonic the Hedgehog and, whatever else is Sega brand will have to go straight to this Sega console. I don't know if this is gonna happen or not. I hope, I want it to happen, but I don't want to be disappointed, because if you guys remember a while back, I think it's when the PS4 started to make its first release. Do you remember a thing called Sega Spectrum? Sega Spectrum was practically that whole hype that people thought it was going to be a new Sega console, and really it was just a new engine. And it even got me hyped because I wanted it to be real, just like the Sega Dreamcast 2 and these trailers that we've been seeing. I wanted that to be real, but I find out later it wasn't real. And don't forget about the Sega Spartan, that's sort of up there. We don't know if it was real. Or the Sega Razor, that was another topic it was called. There was a lot of things been told about Sega coming back, and I think there's public interest in Sega hardware. I mean, it's there. It's just coming down to actually making it happen. And I think as a fan, the only thing I can say and tell you guys is that we just gotta wait to see what happens Monday or the first of the month to see, or whenever they're gonna release the information.